I'm Laura Tanigawa with Public Works. This is the hearing for the substitution request on Geneva Car Barn and Powerhouse Phase 1 with Roebuck and Albert Electric. Gavel down. And let's do swearing in. I do not have a script for swearing in. I'm sorry. Can you help me with that?
Yes, I would. That just if everyone can just pause for 1 second, let me pull one up real quick, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, I will just adapt the script. As you know, this is a public hearing. This hearing is being recorded and will be available after the hearing. The information you're about to, if you can place your hand and say that you're here to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And this hearing is being recorded. And we'll go forward with that. Do all the participants agree?
Richard Campbell agrees.
And I have unmuted anyone. Let me allow everyone to. Okay, everyone's allowed to, if everyone agrees to the condition, we'll go ahead and start. Go ahead.
All right, starting off, we have a 40-minute time slot allotted for Roebuck to make your opening argument. Rory?
And if you need to share the screen, please raise your hand and I will allow you to change to share screen. Or if you need help with instructions, please let me know.
Hi, Rory, do you have audio? Rory, if you're talking, we cannot hear you.
If you called in, you would need to hit *6, I believe, or *9. So what I'm doing is I'm asking everyone, you'll be getting notices asking you to unmute because I don't know which person is Rory. So if you could unmute if you're Rory, or just ignore the messages I'm sending you to ask you to unmute. Do we have Rory on here? Can you raise your hand in the chat or somehow indicate if you're present? We have a hand raised.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, we have a hand raised.
Yeah, this is Rory.
Okay, hi, Rory. Go ahead. Did you have information to present that you want to share your screen, or are you just going to speak?
I actually wasn't prepared to speak. I didn't realize that we needed to make a presentation, but...
Well, it can be informal, Rory. It's your turn to present why you're requesting a substitution on Albert Electric.
Oh, okay. We wrote a letter back to last year when Albert Electric pulled off the job, and we put in a request for substitution. It was received by Robert Loftus. I got a response to say that if there was any issues that they would get back to us. And then I was told during the weekly meeting shortly after that that the substitution request had been accepted, and we just moved forward in that manner.
And who told you the substitution request was accepted?
It would have been Robert Tigbow and Belinda Sullivan from Rec Park and Public Works.
Approximately when was that?
I'd have to go back and look at the meeting minutes, but yeah, it was an item that was being carried on the meeting minutes for a couple of weeks, and then when we had the response to say that everything was received, it was taken off the meeting minutes at that point.
I see. Okay. And why did you ask to have Albert substituted out?
Because they had pulled off the job, so they took all their tools and equipment and left the job and told us that they weren't coming back. So.
Okay. And when did you bring in?
We had meetings with the partnering consultant, and we had meetings at CMD's office to try and reach some sort of resolution, but none was forthcoming.
Ah, I see. You met with CMD about it.
So the meeting minutes were 1/7. It started on 11/23 when Finbar attended the weekly meeting. And then it was taken off the meeting minutes from then on because we were told that it had been approved.
Ah, so that would have been maybe around late January or February.
January 7th, 1/7, it says to close. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, and did you state that you had made payments for supplies, electrical supplies, on behalf of
Correct.
Albert?
So we took over and paid every one of the subcontractors. I knew who the suppliers were that Albert Electric was working on. It was on their Form 6. And some of them had already provided. In fact, most of them had provided submittals. So we just contacted them. They said they weren't getting paid from Albert Electric, so we took over and paid each one of the subcontractors and suppliers.
And you also stated in your request that there was a stop notice.
Correct, and we don't disagree on the amounts. So the amount that's on the stop notice is the balance owed.
I see.
The payments made to the suppliers and the substitute contractor were significantly more than the amount on the stop notice.
I see. Okay. Do you have anything else to present?
No, but I do have, I have an Excel spreadsheet and all the information on who we've paid and the amounts, and I can provide that. I can do that as a follow-up.
You stated that you had paid approximately $100,000. Is that?
No, that was just back in November, just to be able to get the subs paid to be able to continue moving forward.
I see. So you've continued to pay beyond that.
Yeah, everybody's paid in full. Yes.
Okay.
And like I say, I can provide check stubs and backup invoices, etc.
Okay. Can you elaborate more, Rory, on why Albert Electric pulled off the job? Was there anything else going on at the time?
No, you'd have to ask Albert Electric why they pulled off the job.
I see. So they just, as far as you know, they just up and left, which was, when was that?
I believe it was November.
Okay. And was their work satisfactory up to that point?
No, the submittal process was very delayed. I don't believe we were even finished with the submittal process by the time they left the job site. There were still submittals that needed to be resolved.
Okay. So you don't know why he pulled off the job. Why do you think Albert Electric is wrong in protesting the substitution?
Well, you know, my position was that we had to get the job done in order to be, like we were already been threatened with liquidated damages. And so in one breath I was been told to make the substitution and to find somebody who could finish the job, and at the same time then work through to actually get the job complete and turned over. Okay, so I just pulled it up. So between the three suppliers, Holzmuller, PCD, Gexpro, who's a lighting supplier, and Red Hawk, who was another subcontractor, we paid out $325,000, and we paid $170,000 to Delio Electric, who was a substitution.
I see. Okay, have you had a chance to look at Albert's objection letter?
I have not.
Okay, did you receive it?
Was that? No,
Did you receive it? Okay.
No.
All right. So you have about half an hour left on the clock. Do you want to turn over the rest of your time and let Albert respond to what you've presented?
Okay. Is there a chance to respond beyond that?
Yes, you'll get another chance after Albert speaks. You'll get another chance to respond after that, and then you'll get a final closing statement.
Okay.
Okay, Richard, are you here for Albert? Richard, you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Richard
Hi.
Campbell, owner of Albert Electric, and I'm here to speak for Albert Electric.
Okay, Richard, so you get 40 minutes to, I'm sorry, if you first you get 10 minutes to respond to what Rory said, and then you'll get another 40 minutes to make your presentation. Do you want to, could you start out please by responding to what Rory has presented?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I would like to very much clarify everything Rory said, and I would like to do that during my presentation.
Okay, so you're just going to lump it together. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, then you'll get a total of 50 minutes. Go ahead.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing this hearing. So again, my name is Richard Campbell, owner of Albert Electric. Albert Electric entered into a good faith effort on October 25th, 2017, when we provided Roebuck our bid for the Geneva Car Barn project. As everybody knows, that bid was accepted. There was a notice of proceed April 23rd, 2018. The subcontract was provided, and the subcontract start date for the project was April 23rd, 2018. And that was for the contractual 210 calendar days as defined in the city's bid documents, and also clearly stated in the subcontract between Albert Electric and Roebuck.
Sorry, did you say April was the start date? April 23rd?
The notice to proceed, April 23rd, 2018.
Okay.
Which is also reflected in the subcontract start date.
Oh, I see. You mean the notice to proceed from Roebuck to Albert Electric?
Correct. In the subcontract, it's
In the
stated April
subcontract.
23rd.
Got it.
The schedule provided in the subcontract showed April 23rd, and the official notice to proceed from the city also is April 23rd. And it should be noted that, again, the subcontract and the bid documents, everything said the project duration was 210 calendar days.
Mm-hmm.
On September 24th of 2018, change order number 1 was signed, which extended the project duration an additional 130 calendar days. The subcontract between Alber Electric and Roebuck was finally signed with the red lines to make it fair for both parties on October 23rd, 2018. There was a pre-construction meeting on that same day, October 23rd, 2018. Alber Electric reached out to CMD for help on October 23rd, 2018, specifically to Contracts Compliance Officer Diane Mitran. The first day Alber Electric set foot on site to perform work, despite requests to start earlier per the schedule, was November 13, 2018. The end of the 210 calendar days of project duration from notice to proceed was November 19, 2018. Alberta Electric continued to work on the project because we know that per the general conditions that we cannot hold up the project, which we did not, for an additional 324 calendar days. I want to emphasize, an additional 324 calendar days from the contractual 210 days. During that time, the beginning part of 2019, specifically a small portion of the December 2018 payment, all of January, February, March 2019, Alber Electric went without any form of payment. There was a notice of potential change order sent on March 13, 2019, and I'll go with a little bit more details on the change order a little bit later. But the change orders, which all of this reflect around, were rejected by Roebuck on March 21st, 2019. There was a notice of potential claim sent March 28th on 2019. And then, of course, there was we stopped work because of severe financial hardship and lack of payment on October 9th, 2019. During that time, the submittals is an excellent topic. The submittals specifically for lighting is an iterative process. There's preliminary data sheets that are sent for approval, which they were. Then there are sketches sent for approval, which there were. Then there are drawings sent for approval, which they were. And then there's factory drawings, which were sent for approval. And some of those were not completed. And the main reason for that is because, I'm being very specific on lighting, because everything else really wasn't an issue. One of the lights were handrails on the exterior of the building, and those handrails require field dimensions. And that comes from the poured concrete from the stairs. Albert Electric would take the measurements of the field conditions, send them to the factory for the factory's final drawings, which then gets sent to the customer for approval, finishing the submittal process, which then starts the procurement of those lights. According to the schedule, that field condition, the pouring of the concrete for the stairs, was supposed to be completed around the beginning of February 2019. That was not completed until approximately 8 months later in October of 2019. So yes, the submittal process was delayed and also not complete. No arguments. That also applies to the interior lights referred to as the linear lights that span from end to end inside the building. Those lights required field measurements from the walls, which in the beginning of the project, the concrete was not poured to create those actual dimensions. It was not until, I believe it was like November of 2018, when that concrete was poured. So that delayed that process, but that process was complete. My point is that the submittal process absolutely was delayed, but not by Albert Electric. In addition to that, there were some key major components, specifically the main switchboard, which is the main electrical panel outside that sits on top of a concrete pad that somebody else pours for us. That item could only be ordered after Roebuck approves the change order, because there were some significant changes to that item. So although that wasn't mentioned, just want to make it aware that a lot of these delays were not because of Albert Electric.
Sorry, Richard, what was that item you just mentioned?
The main switchboard,
Switchboard.
or
Okay.
abbreviated MSB. And I was reviewing as preparation for this, the daily reports, and there's some 70 plus daily reports which repeatedly bring this up, remind Roebuck, etc., on all of these items. So, the substitution request, to call out some highlighted items here, because Albert Electric canceled the lighting orders, even refused lighting fixture deliveries, which are true, and something about a fire alarm permit, which regrettably was lost, that Albert Electric does not intend to complete the project. Nothing is so far from the truth. That Albert Electric failed to perform his subcontract. I don't know what to say on that one. Roebuck was forced to find an alternative. I argue Roebuck chose to find another alternative. Before I read the notice of demobilization, I want to bring up that Albert Electric contacted CMD October of 2018, Diane Mitrans to be specific, the contracts compliance officer. And also by this whole time that I have mentioned, at no time was Albert Electric invited to or even made aware of partnering on this project. Only until after the demobilization, when it was found out at a meeting at CMD, which I'll get to in a second. The four main points brought up to Diane at CMD on October 24th of 2018, need to update construction schedule, Albert Electric needs to be involved with schedule updates. Albert Electric needs to be informed of schedule status as it applies to Albert Electric, their tasks, and their predecessors. The schedule on this project is probably one of the major problems which caused this unfortunate event. And the last one, how to resolve the 210 calendar day period of performance slip as it applies to labor and material escalations. And to quote the November 5th, 2018 email from Rich, myself to Diane at CMD, I am very interested in having this meeting as it should help resolve items before they become an issue. May I recommend it be part of a recurring weekly meeting? It was never part of a recurring weekly meeting, and these items, which could easily have been resolved, in hindsight suggests partnering would have resolved it, became a major issue and ultimately resulted in Albert Electric being forced to demobilize off the project due to severe financial hardship, which includes not getting paid. I mentioned earlier that the early part of 2019, Albert Electric had not gotten paid. Bear with me. This is an email from my partner at Albert to Rory. We are at about $250,000 in outstanding invoices since December. I realize the city is behind on the payments to you, but we need to make payroll. Rory was extremely generous because on March 6th, we received a $90,000 check from Rory, which allowed Albert Electric to maintain payroll and continue working. This is the single biggest thing that I want to emphasize. Albert Electric has a cash reserve, but once it is depleted, loans are exhausted, it gets to the point where I have to make serious business decisions on how to proceed. And the big summary of why we demobilized was real simple. We just couldn't make payroll. So to go to that, well, before I read this, this notice, to clarify, there were, like I said, formal notices of potential change orders. There were 5 potential change orders sent. Of the 5, 3 of them were overcome by events. That's kind of a long story short. But 2 of them, the labor escalation and extended duration, were still very much applicable. Because those were rejected, there was a formal notice of potential change orders, and there was 2 formal change orders submitted to Roebuck. One for labor escalation and one for extended duration. The labor escalation one, to summarize, when Albert Electric entered into this good faith effort, providing our bid in October of 2017 for a contractual duration of 210 calendar days, it was unreasonable to think that our baseline bid would extend past June of 2019. We factored in the mandatory labor increase in 2018 because that was definitely reasonable. But it was unreasonable to think that it would exceed past the June 2019, a whole year later. The labor escalation simply captures the lost money due to required labor escalation. And the claim is based on direct labor hours from that date where labor was increased to the time we demobilized. The second claim, the extended duration, to summarize, it's the overhead, project management, etc., that Albert incurs every day on the project. And that goes from the end of the 210 calendar days for the additional 324 calendar days, or actually the claim is based on the working days, obviously, of additional project management overhead on the project. And again, the good faith effort was based on the 210 contractual days. The claim captures costs for the additional 324 days. And by the way, the time that Albert stopped work, demobilized, not only was the project not done, the current schedule suggested a November completion. During partnering, there was another schedule that suggested December completion, and my estimates were January 2020 completion. There was a notice of demobilization. It was a really good meeting that Romulus allowed on October 3rd of 2019 at 30 Van Ness. I won't go through the meeting minutes, but that's where everything was brought up. My recollection and what I wrote down was it appeared that the two claims had never formally been submitted to the city. And I'm not going to quote Rory, even though I have it here out of respect, but they were not submitted. So we are now October of 2019. Alberta Electric had not gotten paid for its August invoice. I want to emphasize, it's now October 2019. The August 2019 invoice had not been paid. The September invoice had not gotten paid. Alberta Electric incurred, to Alberta Electric, which is a micro LBE, incurred significant labor escalation costs. Alberta Electric incurred even more significant overhead project management costs. None of this was due to Alberta Electric's fault. Alberta Electric reached out to Roebuck, CMD, everybody that would listen to try to resolve this. We submitted claims, change orders, claims, and there was no compromise. There was no good faith anything. And I have prepared a whole bunch of emails here that I can read from. Maybe I'll read a couple of them. Let's see. April 2019 from Roebuck. The schedule has been extended for numerous reasons. As you are aware, I have told you in several emails, the extension is non-compensatable. April 2019, I have explained to the project management, this is from Roebuck to Alberta Electric, I explained to the project management team that the lack of funding is directly impacting the progress of the job. I believe that's referring to the lack of Alberta Electric getting paid for 3 months. Let's see. Oh, this is November 4th of 2019 to Finbar Joel of CMD. May I please request help getting, this requesting a payment bond. P.S. We informed by Roebuck that they do not authorize to provide a check to Alberta Electric for August invoice. I want to emphasize this is November. We are an honest company trying to do the right thing. We have worked almost a year past the contractual project end and just trying to get paid for work performed. We demobilized simply due to running out of money and have tried everything possible to prevent this unfortunate situation, but without success. Anything you can do so the company does not go broke, which is the current situation. Time check. I think I still have like a ways to go, right?
Yeah, you still have quite a bit of time. I'm wondering if we could pause and I could ask a few questions on what you've presented so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't aware that there was going to be questions and answers, but sure.
So, do you know why the project was delayed?
Unfortunately, I mean, I can give you my speculation, which I would rather not. I can quote the change order. Oh, I'm sorry. I have. Oh boy, what did I do with it? There was a audit performed of the schedule by Swinnerton, I believe, in November of 2018, I believe. And it was about the schedule. And my speculation is, based on all the information I've received, and I want to emphasize this is my own personal speculation. It's simple. The project was severely underestimated as far as duration from the beginning. And then during the performance of the project, and I'm referencing the Swinnerton audit on the schedule, it appeared that there had been several items performed or in the process of being performed, which were clearly taking longer than expected. The city, like I said, change order number 1 extended the duration an additional 130 calendar days. I cannot factually explain why it continued an additional approximately 200 more days after that. I really don't know.
Okay, and that was a non-compensable time extension, correct?
That's what it says,
In that change order.
But it had zero consideration or compensation for Alberta Electric. So yes.
Do you know why your time extensions request or your change order requests were rejected? Did you get a reason?
I'm going to quote the March 21st, 2019 email from Rory to myself. This is a quote. The proposed change orders are rejected. The project time extension, as you are well aware, is non-compensatable. Roebuck and all other subcontractors are experiencing the same issue as Alberta Electric, and we are all doing our best to maintain the current schedule. Alberta Electric is expected to do the same. Please proceed with revising your lighting submittal as requested on numerous occasions, along with ordering the switchgear being the MSB, approved for several months now. Your delay in ordering this equipment could impact the current completion schedule. If it does not, there could be financial consequences in the form of liquidated damages. That's the explanation.
Okay. And if you had been paid your labor escalation and overhead claims, would you have continued working and completed the job?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I see. Do you know why your August and September invoices were held back, or your payments for August and September were held back?
I can give you a two-part answer. Why the August invoice wasn't paid in September or even October, I cannot answer, but that is consistent to the duration of the project. Historically, our payments had always been late. In fact, like I said, the first 3-4 months of 2019, we hadn't gotten paid anything.
But you did receive payments for all your work prior to August 19, is that correct?
Prior to August 19, yes.
Okay.
So why we didn't get paid for August in a reasonable time, I can't answer that. All I can say is the history of the project suggests that there was going to be some significant funding, or I guess more accurate is cash flow issues that Alberta Electric would have to deal with, which were significant to us.
At the time you walked off in early October, or was it October or November?
October 9th.
Okay. At October 9th, 2019, do you know if Roebuck had received the August payment from the city?
Good question. At that time, Alberta Electric had no evidence whether Roebuck had gotten paid or not. But after that, yes, Roebuck appears to have gotten that money just after, same day, just after October 9th.
Okay. And then September would have come later than that. So they hadn't been paid.
Well, September, I'm sorry, I'm getting
September's
confused.
after August, right?
I'm getting confused. Yes.
Okay, so Roebuck, at the time you demobbed October 9th, Roebuck had not been paid August or September.
To be honest with you, I don't remember the exact date. It may have been just before or just after. I really don't remember.
Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, it's October 9th is pretty close to end of September. So that's a possibility.
And be aware that Alberta Electric had to maintain a business, and so we were relying on a reasonable time to get paid so we can continue our cash flow.
Right.
I mentioned before, I'll only mention it one last time. The sole reason why Alberta Electric was forced to demobilize was simply because we were out of money. It's no more complicated than that.
Would you say insolvent?
Oh, to be honest with you, I'm not really prepared to answer that specific question.
Okay, that's fine. And then you mentioned meetings with City and CMD. Did you also talk with Roebuck or meet with Roebuck at the same time?
Yes, there's a combination of both. Of course, I engaged contracts compliance officer for help on the project, guidance mostly at the time. Diane Mitran coordinated some meetings with Roebuck. There was, let's just say, verbal and email communications between Albert and Roebuck directly. I read some of them already. So yes, we met with the city and with Roebuck and the two together.
Okay. And did you get a clear decision or response out of that meeting that told you about why you were substituted out?
There was no talk of substitution to my knowledge, other than the letter I received from the controller's office, I believe, stating that there was a substitution request.
Okay.
Or whatever.
Are you aware that you or the subcontractor is obligated to keep working while change orders are being disputed?
Absolutely, and as mentioned before, that's exactly why we continue to work for 324 calendar days, because we knew we had to, and we did.
I see. And are there any other disputed change orders besides the labor escalation and extended overhead?
To be specific, are there any other change orders? No, there are no other change order, or right now they're claims, but correct, there was no other ones. There are some other issues to reach a mutual settlement, which I'm more than happy to talk about a little bit, but those are the only two.
Okay, so the switchboard one, for instance, that you mentioned has been resolved?
Well, the switchboard was eventually ordered and installed. We did not finish the installation because we demobilized.
I see.
The switchboard, I don't believe is an issue. I know that the lights, we were forced to cancel some of the orders and refuse delivery because we had not gotten paid for August, September, the losses due to the claims. We simply couldn't afford to pay for them. In fact, we still have a couple of outstanding invoices that we have not paid because we have not gotten paid for August or September.
Okay.
And I'm more than happy to work with Roebuck on resolving all that. It's a very easy thing to take care of.
Okay, so that gets me kind of caught up to where you are. Do you want to proceed with your presentation?
The really kind of last thing I want to do is just simply read this letter, October 11th, 2019, from myself, Alberta Electric, to Roebuck, because I think it kind of summarizes. I'm not going to go over the claims, or I mean, I'm more than happy to go over the claims, the two claims which include the red lines of the contract, the baseline schedule, the approved change order that provides no compensation to Alberta Electric, the numbers, justifications, how we derived overhead. Again, all that stuff is in the claim. I'd like to just read this letter here. Alberta Electric, Albert, has demobilized from the performance materially charged without any additional compensation. Albert's performance being different than as identified in his subcontract and beyond what was reasonably anticipated. I want to emphasize, we understand projects are delayed. We understand there's things. That's not the issue. What we don't understand is how a 210-day project can last an additional 324 and counting with zero compensation. Albert presented claims in March of 2019, which detailed the events leading to a 130-day extension to a planned 210-day project and the costs incurred by Albert. Emphasize, Albert continued to work with losses. We understand that we have to work per contract, and we did. And we would have continued had we gotten any kind of compensation, anything, including the August payment, but we got nothing. Roebuck cannot reasonably deny that it must pay Albert for the impacts to Albert's performance. Despite this, Roebuck has refused to even respond to any of Albert's claims and refuses to increase Albert's subcontract sum to compensate. Obviously, it is Roebuck's intent to place the financial burden of the changes to this project upon Albert. Roebuck intends to force its subcontractors to finance this project. These actions and failures to act by Roebuck constitute material breaches of Roebuck's obligations under Albert's subcontract. These breaches, at the least, excuse Albert's obligation to prosecute the work. Roebuck's actions have placed Albert in the position of becoming, here's your answer. Roebuck's actions have placed Albert in the position of becoming insolvent and sacrificing its business if Albert were to continue to perform, pay its workers, and pay for material and equipment without compensation from Roebuck. This extreme violation of the Albert subcontract by Roebuck results in Albert having to demobilize to save its business. These breaches also entitle Albert to terminate its subcontract, which Albert reserves the right to do. Albert will be removing its labor from the project, canceling existing orders for materials and equipment, and returning material and equipment which have not been delivered to the site back to vendors. Albert will be presenting a demand for payment for any and all demobilization costs it incurs as a result of Roebuck's breaches. Not inside this letter, and I'll speak for myself. We did everything possible to identify a potential problem before it was a problem. We tried to compromise. We made it clear there's precedence of not getting paid and how if we didn't, it would cause a problem, which Roebuck gave us the $90,000 check as a partial payment to the $250,000. We would continue to have worked on this project, and most all of our messages state that. We understand reasonable delays. We understand all that stuff. That's not the issue. Had we been aware that partnering even existing on the project, this probably would not have been a problem because it would have been identified to the proper people, both sides of the story, at least a year in advance. The partnering sessions that started in November of 2019 focused only on Albert going back to work, but there was no talk, no compromise, nothing on getting paid. Albert was forced to demobilize. We filed a stop notice, and we've done everything possible, including responding to this substitution, which I make, assuming everybody has this letter, regarding letter of substitution request, Albert Electric objects. Severe financial hardship due to unreasonable violation of Roebuck subcontract. Project's extension duration has forced Albert to reduce workforce simply due to inability to make payroll. I'm not going to read all the details. Due to excessive uncompensated costs as a direct result of the project completion of November 2018 extending into 2020, that was my estimate, refusal to compensate, compromise, etc., Albert was forced to continue working until such cash reserves were depleted. Albert has and will continue to do everything possible to complete the project, and that still stands true today. Situation was severely compounded by Roebuck's violation in keeping Albert's portion of the August and September 2019 payment, which we still have not received, and has been the primary reason for canceling orders. And then last thing, severe financial hardship due to unreasonable violation of Roebuck subcontract project duration. That's kind of all I had.
Okay, and I have another question, Richard. Are you aware that a general contractor is not obligated to pay the subcontractor until after they have received payment from the owner?
I'm aware of that, yes.
Okay. Hold on, let me go through my notes a little bit. So the original substantial completion of this contract was November 18th, 2018. Does that sound right?
Oh, give me 1 second. I thought it was March.
It's a 7-month contract, November, December, January. Maybe I'm looking at an old NTP notice that was superseded. I'm looking at a
You were correct.
NTP notice substantial November 18th, 2018.
Correct.
Okay, and then you said you mobilized to the site, started work in November 13th, 2018?
Correct.
Really close to the original substantial completion date.
Correct.
Right. Had you incurred a lot of expenses prior to your mobilizing on site?
Oh, excellent question. To clarify, so Albert Electric being a micro LBE and the size of this project, we assessed risk. So what we did was we made sure, and again, this is per the contract schedule provided, we basically made Albert Electric 100% available for this project to execute the schedule to complete in November 20. So all of our other projects, we weren't bringing on any additional work so we could execute this. So yes, we were losing, we were spending, we weren't losing, we were spending overhead on this project.
Oh, I see. You mean you had ongoing home office overhead expenses?
Oh, absolutely.
That you weren't recovering anywhere else?
Exactly. That's exactly what the extended duration claim talks about, but that's after the 210 days. We'd be fully budgeted for 210 days.
Okay. So you started work on November 2018, so that puts you into June of 19. June, July, August, September, October. And then by October, you were not able to continue working. I see. Okay. You have, I believe, 9 minutes left.
I will waive those. I will waive those 9 minutes.
Waiving that. Okay. Rory, you have 10 minutes to respond to what Albert Electric has presented.
Okay. Well, as Richard correctly identified, Albert Electric were the last subcontractor to sign their subcontract. He waited until the end of October. He told me the biggest concern that he had was the timeline and that he didn't have the manpower to be able to man a job of that magnitude with the manpower that he had. And I explained to him that even though that was the original contract timeline that was presented in the bid documents, that we were already working on extending the timeline to be able to accommodate it because of some of the formwork requirements. He has stated repeatedly that he had a significant amount of office time and overhead prior to signing that contract that he had for 5 months before he signed it, but the only overhead that could have been expended would have been time preparing the submittals, and that wasn't the case because, as I stated, we didn't get an approved switchgear submittal for 4 months after he did sign his contract, and that switchgear was a 4-month lead time. So there's 8 months in its own right just on that. He stated that Roebuck didn't approve change orders, but Roebuck obviously just presents the change orders to the design team, and then there's back and forth. So one of the big delays on the change order for the switchgear was some additional scope and size changes that hadn't been brought to people's attention as part of the submittal. The design team basically were fighting back, saying that the additional costs were nowhere near where Alberta Electric was presenting them, and in reality it came down to being simply a $4,000 change order, but that delayed the switchgear order for over 2 months. Rich has stated that the linear light fixtures could not be measured or ordered until the concrete was done. That's not true. No concrete is part of the light fixture installation. All the light fixtures are installed on the existing steel members that are in the building at the roof level and on the gantry.
Are those the handrail light fixtures
that
No, the
handrails are
mentioned?
outside. Yeah, the handrails I'm not worried about. They're not the long lead time. They're a $7,000 or $8,000 piece of equipment. What we ended up doing, because of the fact that it wasn't ordered, we put in temporary handrails in order to meet the permitting and then swap them out later. So that wasn't an issue. But the interior lights could not be done. The reason why Rich wouldn't have been involved in partnering is simply because of the fact that he hadn't signed a contract. So I had no idea whether or not Alberta Electric was going to be part of the construction team for this project until the end of October. The initial kickoff partnering meeting would have been probably 6 months prior to that. The partnering session that we did have, as he referred to, prior to him pulling off the job, was to try and find some common ground to be able to keep Alberta Electric on the job. And the response from Rich to both me on the partnering was, pay me $250,000 tomorrow and I'll be back on site. The accounting, as I said, we presented our invoices in a timely manner for review by the design team every month. There was a history of them not being reviewed quickly and an even longer delay on actually getting funded. Roebuck took funds from another project that we were funded on to pay Rich. And part of Alberta Electric's issue is they, at the stage that they walked off the job, they knew that they didn't have enough money to be able to complete the job. As I said, the 4 suppliers that we paid on his behalf total $325,000. The stop notice was for the balance of money owed, which is $370,000, and it was clear that there was significantly more than $45,000 worth of work left to be done. At the stage that he pulled off the job, the switchgear that he referred to was still not complete. Roebuck had expenses on trying to temporarily enclose the building to get a green tag, which is required on the switchgear to energize the building. And at the stage that Alberta Electric pulled off the job, they were still not complete with that scope. So it's hard to indicate that Roebuck Construction was delaying Alberta Electric on their ability to be able to work when, as I said, their submittal process was beyond extensive. Alberta Electric pretty much had, it's not like Alberta Electric was pulling up to the job, working, and then having to pull off because of the fact that there was no work ahead of them. They pretty much had an employee on site every single day. They did on a couple of occasions when they got so far behind, call in some support from the Union Hall. And unfortunately, given the busy times that we were in 2018 and 19, the quality of the labor was insufficient, and they ended up having to let them go. So, as I say, I think what happened was that Alberta Electric simply recognized the fact that they didn't have enough money to complete the job. You know, part of that payments that we made was $153,000 to the lighting. He pulled off the job in November. Some of these lights are 3-4 month lead time, and to say that we're delaying him from completing the project when he hasn't even ordered the light fixtures to be able to finish the job isn't really adding up.
Rory, why did the time slip initially? Why was
there was a
Albert
problem
brought
initially
on so
with
late?
The structural design created issues that in terms of the formwork and to be able to create the board form. So that's the reason why we pursued a non-compensable time extension to be able to do the formwork that was required for that.
Why was it non-compensable?
Because of the fact that I had assumed that the timeline for the project was going to be more than the 7 months, given where we were in terms of everybody being so busy and the length of time that it was going to take us to do the initial structural scope. I did, at the partnering meeting, I did tell Rich, and I had told him before he signed the contract that I would do what I could to be able to continue to fund his payroll to keep him on the job.
Oh, I see. So before you bid the job, you thought that the duration was too short.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. The duration, the 210 calendar days.
The contract duration was too short.
Well, but yeah, it was part of the bid document.
Okay.
So,
and did you pass on Albert Electric's change order request for escalation and extended overhead to the owner?
The extended overhead was passed on to the owner, and that was part of the reason why we had the meeting with Romulus at 30
CMD.
And yeah, and Rec Park attended that.
I see.
I had told Rich at the partnering session that I could understand the fact that it did drag on, that there should be some compensation, and I was happy to review the manpower that he had on the job. But the original presentation that he provided was for like $5,000. So even if that went up, which is what we discussed at that meeting, I said I would be open to try and compensate him for that, to keep him on the job.
I'm sorry, did you say $5,000 for?
The initial claim for the labor escalation was $5,000.
Okay, and then the extended...
The claim for the extended overhead was for $250,000.
Okay.
And as I said, if on the day that he showed up on October 23rd with a signed contract and ready to go, if he had every submittal done, then I would say yes, he had office time prior to that, but that was not the case.
So wait, you expected submittals on the day that Albert signed the contract with you, the subcontract?
Well, if he genuinely had overhead prior to signing the contract, the submittals would be done.
Okay. And so your NTP with the city was in January 2018, and then you contracted with Albert.
I don't know the dates.
Much later in the year.
Once we got the NTP,
yes,
the subcontracts would have been issued at that point.
Okay. Maybe that was the April date that Richard mentioned. Okay.
So, like I say, we were looking at approximately 6 months after the subcontract was issued to Albert Electric before it was actually executed.
Hold on. I'm just going to scroll through my notes here for a second. Hold on. Okay. Do you have anything else in your response, Rory?
No, I think that's it. Well, like I say, I can provide the backup for the payments made.
Okay, let's move on to closing arguments then. So, Rory, you get another 10 minutes. Do you have anything else to add for closing argument?
Nothing too significant.
Okay.
You know, I know Rich was trying to be incredibly thorough on some of these light fixture submittals, and maybe all of the review was not, or the timeline to review these was not purely on his court. There's no doubt that the design team were slow on some of these, but like I say, I've got linear light fixture submittals that weren't even presented until July of 2019. So we're looking at 9 months after subcontract was signed before they were even presented.
Okay.
And, you know, I did the best I could in terms of continuing to be able to fund him to keep him on the job site. But I think what happened was that he recognized that he didn't have enough in the contract amount to be able to fully finish the job. So that's why he pulled off.
Oh, I have one more question. When did you contract with DeLeo?
It would have
Approximately.
been
Approximately.
Yeah, it would have been probably mid to late January after that. Like I say, after we got to the point where we were having weekly meetings for. It was indicated to me that the substitution had been approved.
I see. Okay. Richard, do you have a 10-minute spot for closing argument?
Got it. The subcontract that was provided to Alber Electric was thoroughly reviewed, and there was some significant items which Alber Electric redlined, like I said before, to make it mutually fair for both parties. It needs to be said that Roebuck signed the contract in October 23rd. There was some significant pushback and refusal to agree to the red lines, but they were ultimately agreed. Alber Electric did have the people. Alber Electric is signatory to Local 6, and Alber Electric maintains our reputation. If we have somebody working for us that doesn't hold up to Alber Electric's quality standards, we let them go. This unfortunately happens on a regular basis, especially when the workflow changes significantly, which is what happened on the Geneva car barn, where we would work because we were able to work due to the conditions on site. Then we couldn't because our predecessors for other work weren't done. Then we had to remobilize, go back, work, and this happened a lot. And one of the big items, and again, because we're electrical, we're typically at the end of the project. One of the big items is the electrical room, where all of the main electrical equipment is in. We couldn't start that work until the room existed, which came very late in the project, and we mobilized as many people as we could. So we maintained the highest quality work we possibly could do using union labor, and I saw that that was the case, and we stick by that. The submittals continuously appear to be the focus. Again, I'll emphasize the linear lights that are inside of the building. I don't remember the details, but I vaguely remember at least one of them was like 40 feet long. And it had a 3-inch tolerance from the poured concrete wall. So, not to repeat myself, but once the concrete was poured, we were able to measure that dimension. provide the final dimensions to the factory, and the iterative process of submittals continued. That was on the linear lights. And again, I can show all this detail. That's not a problem. The famous green tag, that one's a good one. The so-called green tag is what the electrical inspector provides, so the utility company can provide power to the building. We received a checklist from the electrical inspector from DBI, and it listed all of the items that had to be completed prior to the green tag inspection. And as an example, one of those items is the electrical room had to have a door on it. The walls in the electrical room had to be complete. There had to be a light in the electrical room, and there needed to be a lock on the door. This checklist was provided to Roebuck, and towards the end of this project, those items hadn't been completed, which is one of the main reasons why there was no great big rush for Albert to finish our work, because when you hear it's at least a couple weeks away from them finishing the walls, you say, well, what's the rush? You're not on the critical path. The walls are. Again, as mentioned before, we provided a good faith proposal based on all the bid documents. And if the bid documents were different, we most likely would have provided a very different proposal. And we expect that if something deviates from the bid documents, such as 210 days changes to 500 days, that we would do a change order and there would be some reasonable consideration. And reasonable would be some form of actual compensation. And I'm more than happy to compromise on anything, but there was no compromise on anything. And a little interesting thing on the change orders that were, the claims that were presented in March of 2019 were estimates based on the current schedule, which, by the way, one of the red lines in the subcontract was that the schedule be mutually agreed upon, which it never was. So the claims presented in March were estimates based on the current schedule. So the $5,000 labor escalation, when it came to October, or whenever the claims were updated, I should say, the claims were updated based on actual hours. So that $5,000 labor escalation went to $22,000 based on certified payroll, et cetera. And again, from the whole history of this project, there was no consideration, there was no compensation, there was no compromise. There's precedence that not getting paid could cause problem. That was resolved. At the end of the project, when we had to demobilize, we were fully committed to finishing the project. We can argue back and forth whether there was enough money or not, but we committed to a project. We followed the general conditions, we followed the subcontract, and had we gotten paid and had we gotten compensated for changes, we would have finished that project in the most effective manner possible and the highest quality possible. But like I said, because there was no compromise, no consideration, nothing, this unfortunate thing resulted. That's all I had.
Richard, I want to ask you this one more time and make sure I have it right. You contracted with Roebuck, did you say April of 18 or October of 18?
The final signatures on the contract, according to my notes here, were on May 23rd of 2018.
Ah, okay. And then you came on site in November. So between, yeah.
The schedule suggested that we would be on site much, much earlier, but for any of our predecessors to be complete, the earliest that we could be on site to do any actual work was November 13, 2018.
Okay. And between your contract date of May and your MOB date of November, you had incurred a lot of extended overhead And did that include submittal preparation?
The submittals were being prepared at the time. In fact, I did a real quick search when I was listening here. It looks like one of the first formal submittals was sent September of 2018. So that was just a quick search.
So one of the first, so that's 4 months after your contract date.
Yeah, that's when it was submitted. Doesn't mean that no work was being performed prior.
Right. Okay. Got it. I think we've gone through our whole process here. I believe that concludes our hearing. So we will get back to you. Thank you very much for your presentations. And we're done.
All right, I will gavel down and the recording will end.
Thank you.
Thank you.